We got some big changes coming to San Diego and a lot of trades to talk about on this edition of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks. It's actually Locked On Gulls. This is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason J.D. Hernandez, covering hockey for over a decade. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day or night or whatever it is. Don't forget to follow along on YouTube if you haven't already. All right, so first, a little bit of a disclaimer to peel back the curtain. This is I think it's like take 7 of trying to do this episode. We've had some difficulties. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, so this is take 7, and thank God I've not done take 1 because there was a couple of trades that took place between recording first and recording now, and we're just gonna probably go straight through on this episode. I'm actually not gonna do an intermission. I'm just going to go straight through on this since I'll be leaving in a few hours. And unfortunately, I might not be able to cover any Ducks trades if it happens between 8 Pacific and noon Pacific. So I just want to throw that out there right now. So we've got to talk about all the trades that have happened because, let's be honest, none of them actually involve the Anaheim Ducks. All the trades that have been made have actually involved, in a way, the San Diego Gulls. Those are all the trades that have happened over the last few days. So I've got to start with something that I kind of alluded to before. A few weeks ago, I talked about which players might be black aces for the San Diego Gulls. John Broadbent and I discussed, who could possibly sign after their college season. And one of those names we mentioned was Henry Thrun. Now, as it turned out, about a week or so ago, Henry Thrun decided to become a free agent, but his signing rights were still with the Anaheim Ducks, and he could still get dealt with those rights. Well, as it turns out, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, that happened. Henry Thrun, or rather the signing rights to Henry Thrun, was traded over to the San Jose Sharks, more accurately, the San Jose Barracuda, in exchange for a third-round pick. Hold on. Henry Thrun was a fourth-round pick, and the Ducks just flipped him for a third-round pick in 2024. You know what? Golf clap right there. Yeah, kudos to Pat Verbeek for flipping a fourth into a third-round pick for next season. So I got to give props for that. And San Jose, they're looking to have a little bit of depth in that position. Wait, I said San Jose, not the Sharks, the Barracuda. The Sharks are right now in the battle for Bedard, but in the American Hockey League, the San Jose Barracuda are still in it. In fact, the Barracuda are 5 points back of the Roadrunners for that last playoff spot. However, the Barracuda have 2 games in hand over Tucson. So if San Jose has a successful weekend, then they could find themselves right back in the playoff race. But I wouldn't count on it because San Jose has to face the Ontario Reign and the Coachella Valley Firebirds. I will be present at both those games, just to throw that out there right now. Actually, I'm going to be up in San Jose for a few days, so won't be home for pretty much anything this weekend. But it'll be interesting to see how San Jose fares against both the Firebirds and the Reign, because those are 2 teams that are playoff bound, not clinched yet, but those are 2 very, very good teams. And a little bit interesting for myself, and for those of you that know me, you probably know why. The Barracuda are just a fascinating team. I mean, I just saw them lose in overtime to the Firebirds on Monday night. And after the top 2 lines, there's not a whole lot there. I mean, even like the top 6 on offense, like forwards and your top maybe 3 defensemen, after that, they could use a little bit of help. And I think Henry Thrun could help out the Barracuda for a possible playoff run. So maybe that's San Jose not being desperate, but a little bit of, okay, we need someone to fill that gap. I think this accomplishes that. So once again, Henry Thrun's signing rights go over to the Sharks. And that's if he decides to sign over there. Then we had a couple of trades that made me a little bit unsure about, well, everything. Because there was technically 2 trades on paper with the Rockford Ice Hogs, when in fact it's kind of one trade, sort of. Yeah, they made a couple deals with the Rockford Ice Hogs. Here's what one of those trades was. One of those trades had to do with Dylan Sakura and Maxime Golod. Okay, so Max Golod, who has spent the majority of time with the San Diego Gulls, has looked decent at times. A depth piece for the... Yeah, it's fine. It's a fine piece. And the Anaheim Ducks acquired Dylan Sakura from the Chicago Blackhawks. This is technically an AHL NHL deal. Technically. Could Dylan Sakura sign with the Anaheim Ducks? He could later on down the line. But as of right now, he is going to report to the San Diego Gulls, which means I would expect Sakura to be in San Diego, or rather in Tucson, this coming weekend. That's the expectation. Not to say that he won't get some time with the Ducks, because the Ducks could make some trades in the next 18 hours or so. Well, yeah, they could make some deals fairly soon. Will that happen? I would anticipate yes. I mean, Klingberg, I think, is as good as gone, and they're going to wait till the last minute because, of course, Kulikov, he's probably gone. Shattenkirk, could he be gone? Who knows? Could Henrique be gone? Anaheim is keeping somewhat tight-lipped about anyone else leaving, but the 2 that I think are for sure gone are Kulikov and Klingberg, because they were both held out of lineups on Wednesday's game. That being said, don't be surprised if we see one more deal involving the San Diego Gulls. Again, we've got some more time on this, and something else that I want to point out. There was a second trade there. A second trade. This is the big one. If you're a San Diego Gulls fan, this is the one that probably got you a little bit upset. The San Diego Gulls traded Rocco Grimaldi and Logan Nyhoff to the Ice Hogs for future considerations. Yeah, I'm going to let all the Gulls fans pick up their jaws from the floor right now, because this bears repeating. The San Diego Gulls traded away Logan Nyhoff and their leading goal scorer, Rocco Grimaldi. So all in all, here's what the Ice Hogs got. They got Rocco Grimaldi. They got Logan Nyhoff. They got Max Golod. And the Gulls got back Dylan Sakura. Yeah, this hurts. This one hurts. Because the Ice Hogs had some other... I'm just going to say it. They had some better players out there. And I'm just going to reference Sean O'Brien's tableau, who does a fantastic job, by the way. So in this little table, Dylan Sakura is, depth chart value as a third line forward. He's got offensive point shares of 2.2, defensive point shares 0.4. Yeah, his percentile rank in the AHL, is 59.7%. Okay, let's go over and see what San Diego gave up. Let's start with Max Golod. He's only played one game this season. He spent a lot of time in the ECHL. He's been in and out. He's been decent at best. He's a replacement level guy. That's Max Golod. All right, that's one player. Then Logan Nyhoff, another replacement level guy. And then you have Rocco Grimaldi, who is marked as a first line forward, and if he was in a better team, he would possibly be marked as a top AHL forward, like Michael Carcone, like Matthew Phillips, like Jesper Froden, who is currently up with the Seattle Kraken, like Max McCormick. I'm channeling my PA voice here. But yeah, those are guys marked as top AHL forwards. McCormick, Froden, Barre Boulet, Matt Phillips, Matthew Carcone. Yeah. And Rocco Grimaldi would be a top AHL forward if he was on a better team that was not the San Diego Gulls. His percentile rank is 95.8%. His offensive point shares. Ready for this? His offensive point shares are third in the entire American Hockey League. Just ahead of him, Matthew Phillips and Michael Carcone. Man, the Pacific Division is strong. But that's it. That's the entire list of people that are above Grimaldi as far as offensive point shares in the entire league. And like I said, if he was on a better team, that number would be upwards of 6.5 to 7. That is disgusting. I mean, Rocco Grimaldi single-handedly won a game that I will talk about in a few minutes. But to lose someone of that caliber for essentially a middle-of-the-road player, according to the metrics. I mean, Dylan Sakura is a fine player. He's fine. But he's also not the player that he used to be. Like I said, he's like right down the middle as far as percentile ranks in the American Hockey League. And could Sakura go up with the Ducks? Possibly. But if there was any player that could have gone to Anaheim, it should have been Rocco Grimaldi. He was given such a raw deal that I kind of feel bad. I think Rocco Grimaldi, frankly, deserved better. He deserved much better than the fate he got in San Diego. And you talk about a character guy and a little bit of inside baseball. Someone from all accounts is one of the nicest guys on earth. Doesn't say really anything bad about anyone else. And even on the ice, he seems like a guy that wouldn't get pissed off all too much. I think I've actually heard him curse maybe once or twice ever. And that's it. Both times on the ice, obviously. But outside of that, he's one of the coolest guys you can ever meet. And he just, at least he gets in a better spot for a Calder Cup run. Because Rockford, right now, they are fourth in the Central Division. If the playoffs began right now, they would be in the play-in series with the Iowa Wild. Ain't that interesting? But of course, Rockford, they could always move up to the third spot, leapfrog Manitoba, or the second spot and leapfrog the Milwaukee Admirals. I don't know about the Admirals. I mean, Texas and Milwaukee are fighting for that number one spot, but Rockford could potentially leapfrog the Manitoba Moose. And I think with this deal, I think this will send Rockford into a good spot heading into the postseason. There is one team that's pretty hot right now, and that's the Chicago Wolves. The Chicago Wolves, they could make some deals coming up too. If there's one team in the Central that could possibly sneak in, it would be the Wolves. They're kind of on fire right now. 7-2-1 in their last 10. Iowa is reeling. Rockford, they were kind of reeling. They needed this deal to happen. And good for Rocco. But for the Gulls, boy, that's just too big of a piece to lose. So once again, to recap these trades so far, AHL deals. Ducks get a third round pick next season. The Gulls lose they lose out on being able to sign Henry Thrun. Then you had Dylan Sakura going to San Diego, and the Gulls lose Max Galode. They lose Rocco Grimaldi, which really sucks. And they also lose Logan Nyhoff. Yeah, this one's tough. This one's really tough, folks. All right, we're going to head into the intermission and talk about the games that took place. So stay locked in. But first, I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel. We are so excited here at Locked On to make FanDuel our sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And hey, the playoffs are coming very soon in the NBA and the NHL. But better yet, the calendar turned. It is now March, which means it's time for March Madness, baby. Yeah. So if you want to check out all the March Madness lines, then head over to FanDuel.com/NHL Network. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/NHL Network. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please gamble responsibly. All right. We're going to just wrap up right here and talk about the games that took place. And there was some good action for San Diego, some not so much. So just to briefly go over the schedule that was the last 3 games. They had a game against the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Yeah, Coachella Valley, top team in the league. San Diego, not a top team in the league. You can probably guess how that one ended up. This was a bloodbath. San Diego was pretty much no match for Coachella Valley in this one. Firebirds came out, dare I say, firing after Rocco Grimaldi's, at the time, league-leading 26th goal of the season. At the time. And then the Firebirds did what they always do, or they have done for the majority of this season. They got even. It started off with John Hayden, his 15th of the season. And then that's when things got a little bit spicy. I kind of liked this one. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. But here's what happened. We had Ian McKinnon and Travis Howe going at it. But what I really liked about this, I liked seeing Travis Howe just kind of, not gently, but, you know, he took off his helmet, like so. Like, he just kind of, like, was ready, and then took off the helmet, and so did Ian McKinnon. So Howe was the first one to take the helmet off, then McKinnon, so that gave him the extra 2 minutes, and then they went at it. This was a fight that I think was won by Ian McKinnon for the sole reason that the Firebirds were sparked after that fight. If you looked at both benches after the fight, the Firebirds bench, they were just on it after that because they scored 4 unanswered goals after that fight. Cameron Hughes, Ty Cartier, Jimmy Schultz, Austin Pagansky, all scored goals for the Firebirds. Regenda scored a garbage time goal with a minute and a half left. There wasn't really any celebrating. Didn't really matter. Final score, 5-2 in favor of the Firebirds. Now this second game that I was at. This took place at Toyota Arena, and it was Humane Society night for the Ontario Reign. So they had their special uniforms on. Looked really cool. I liked the fact that San Diego did something that we have not seen in a while. And I don't know where this came from, but this was probably the best team defense that I have seen San Diego play all season long. And I was messaging John Broadbent throughout the entire game because I happened to be in Ontario. And normally I see a lot of things that the cameras miss, especially at that arena that's falling apart right now. But the Ontario Reign probably should have won this game because for a good half of the game, they were the better team. San Diego just happened to get a lot more blocked shots. And Ontario did something that some teams do when they play the Gulls. They played down to their opponents, and the Gulls took advantage. Now that first goal by Drew Helleson, this was really set up by Rocco Grimaldi. I think Grimaldi did a great job of, moving the puck, especially the first few minutes of the game. He was the one that came out like that. He came out like gangbusters that first period and tried to make as much happen as possible. He tried to single-handedly will the goals to victory. He's done this before. Actually, no, he's done this several times this season. There was the Rocco Grimaldi hat trick, and they lost. Oh yeah, we'll get to that one in a brief moment. But Rocco Grimaldi, yeah, think back to that hat trick that Grimaldi had earlier in the season. In a loss. In a loss, by the way. That's how bad it got. Was when Rocco Grimaldi was starting to try to single-handedly win the games. And this was the game at Pechanga Arena about 2 weeks ago. Grimaldi's hat trick, nothing. And then this one. This was a revenge game for the Gulls of sorts. Especially for Rocco Grimaldi. I mean, imagine losing a couple weeks prior to the Ontario Reign. In overtime, by the way. Oh, if you're the Gulls, you remember that game. That one is fresh in your mind. Ugh. So fast forward to Sunday's game. Revenge best served on a cold platter. San Diego actually outshot the Ontario Reign 30-22. But the one thing that I took away that the cameras definitely didn't see was just the talking along the bench. This was something that I hadn't seen from the Gulls pretty much all season long. Once one block happened, then it became infectious. And there was a lot more communicating from the team that I had seen in a long while. Especially that, that 1-3-1 defense that they had for a little bit, where they were communicating effectively where the puck was going. Some of it was lazy passing, but some of it was also good defense. San Diego was on top of their game on the forecheck. They were especially on their game in the back check. The forechecking looked really good from Rocco Grimaldi, as it always does. And I also got to give a little bit of credit here to Glenn Gaudin. I thought Glenn Gaudin played a terrific game for San Diego in this one. So did Brouillard. Brouillard, I thought, looked pretty good in this one. And I also have to give props to Michael Del Zotto in this game. And the reason I'm going to give Del Zotto the big props for this game is because he was starting to be very aggressive on the forecheck. When Ontario would try to get a puck out of their own defensive zone at least twice in this game, Michael Del Zotto would make some kind of active stick play to keep the puck in the Gulls' offensive zone and create a shot for himself. So this is where Del Zotto's NHL experience comes into play. I thought he was terrific in that moment right there. So got to give my props to MDZ. And then Ontario scored on the power play. Samuel Fagimo. All right, whatever. Then we go to overtime. A bad turnover by the Ontario Reign directly led to a Rocco Grimaldi breakaway, and he nailed it. And I could tell that Cal Peterson was pretty pissed off because, well, first off, he just got beat by Ole Eriksson Ek, who had a pretty good game. Eriksson Ek, second star of the game. Easily his best outing of the season. This is a confidence booster for Ole Eriksson Ek. For Cal Peterson is not looking that good. And I'm just going to be frank. For those of you that are Kings fans, and if you're listening or watching, you're a Kings fan, what I'm going to say is brutal. The Kings needed to trade Jonathan Quick. They needed to make that trade because Cal Peterson ain't coming back up. Cal Peterson gave up 6 goals to the Firebirds last Wednesday. Not this one, the previous Wednesday. He looked bad. Cal looked bad. I mean, the Firebirds looked good in that game, and they made Cal look silly. And after Peterson gave up that 5th goal, he slammed his stick against the goalpost, broke one stick. After a 6th goal, after the game, he broke another stick. His attitude, his approach to the games right now is not good if you're an Ontario Reign fan. If you're a Gulls fan, you are loving this. You are salivating at seeing Cal Peterson implode. And it's even worse that Matt Villalta's looking better. Cal Peterson committed early on that Rocco Grimaldi breakaway. He didn't fall for the first fake, but Cal committed on the second move to Grimaldi's right, and Cal was a dead duck. I think if Cal stayed back a little bit more or a little bit longer, then he may have gotten that save. But because Peterson bit on the secondary move by Rocco Grimaldi, that was it. Done deal. Rocco Grimaldi's 27th goal of the season to win it in overtime. That was a big, big win for the San Diego Gulls, 2-1. That was pretty sick, not gonna lie. Last game, just a hot mess. I will say Henderson did win that one 6-5, but San Diego kind of played their asses off in this one. And again, I'll give credit to the offense on this one. Rocco Grimaldi, for what it's worth, another fine day for Rocco. He got 2 apples in this one. Gotta also give credit to Chase DeLeo. The Gulls are way better with Chase DeLeo back in the lineup. But this was just not a good outing for Ole Eriksson Ek. It wasn't. Yuri Patera, not much better. Just one of those games. So 6-5 final score. Yeah, the Gulls currently have a 0.0% chance, according to the model, of making the playoffs. I think these last 2 losses, I think that did it for them. Because right now they only have 31 points with 17 left. Pretty soon we're going to talk about eliminations. Not what you want to hear, but just got to be frank with y'all. All right, I think that's going to do it for this edition of Locked on Gulls. Once again, thanks for watching. We'll have another episode before the week is over. We'll see if the Ducks make a trade before I got to leave, but if they don't, I will try to have a now video or post my thoughts on it during Friday. I'll be on the road, so we'll see what happens. Once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon. You can follow me on Twitter at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. Email is lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for your continued support. It is greatly appreciated. For Locked On Gulls, I'm Jason J.D. Hernandez saying have a great rest of the afternoon. Please continue to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks and Gulls fly together.